All right, so the next blog post that you're going to make is going to be about a community food group. So this project here, the reason why I'm having you do this is, and as you probably realized through a lot of our conversations, sustainability is not necessarily just an outcome, but it's a process. So to become sustainable means getting actively involved into your own food endeavors. So being able to reconnect with your own food by producing and transforming, managing the waste and all of these things of your own food. But the further point is actually this has to be done in community settings also. So within communities, we have the ability to, produce local food hubs, to do urban agriculture, to have a food security through food banks or other endeavors that communities have put together, either through help with local politicians or even through social economy ventures where groups form nonprofits and cooperatives to address community issues or to reconnect with aspects of community. Usually in this course, I have you engage a lot more into these efforts, but considering there's a pandemic going on and we do have to still be careful, and as well as this course is being done remotely. It's difficult for me to manage these projects as much as it would if I could engage with you in a classroom setting. We're going to try this out anyway, and what I'm asking you to do is 3 hours to work with a community group. I have some that you could come and work with here in Lachine area, but there's other groups as well that I'll mention to you, and it'll be up to you to figure out what you'd like to do. So just to go over the project with you, I have a project description here that I've put up on the course syllabus. So you're going to volunteer with a community group or community project. I say in Lachine, but it could actually be wherever you're from. Could make, try to make it make sense for you and make sure that you're comfortable with the group that you're going to be working with. If you don't think it's safe, let's just say you're in a different part of the world right now and you might be experiencing heightened or, the pandemic might be more prevalent or serious in your area at the present moment, or who knows what will happen in Quebec if we have an uptick in the next week or two. We may want to be careful with this. But anyhow, so this will be up to you to judge how you want to volunteer with this group. It doesn't mean you have to go there physically. There are a bunch of groups looking for other work, especially in the way of communication and outreach. That could be possible too. You could do this remotely. But what I want you to do is I want you to volunteer with one of these groups and get to know the group a little bit. So I want you to learn by doing. So you can volunteer with the garden collective, with a food distribution organization. It could be a small farmer's market or any group that fits this criteria. If you're not sure if the group fits the criteria, just send me an email and ask me, and I'll let you know. So students will write a blog post about 600 words, basically describing a day in the life of that food organization, but also incorporating a larger discussion about the food organization and what it's addressing. So food security, local production, urban agriculture, fair trade, or a number of topics that we've already discussed in this course. So the blog must address the appropriate audience and make sure the information is conveyed to the audience based on the level of the subject matter. You could also do a video production if you want to, but if you do, then you have to let me know that you want to do that. So your blog must contain 5 reliable, valid, credible sources. And if you can't get to Lachine, like I was saying, you could do this in your local area. But if you actually want to come out to Lachine, there's a community garden that I'm working with right now, and you can come and volunteer in this community garden. You will actually get some produce out of this also. So anybody that comes to the garden to help out actually will take home some kind of a food basket, probably some lettuce and some spinach or whatever is available at the time. Anyhow, so that is maybe an incentive for you to come, and you can get to meet me and check out what we're up to here. But I'm not going to, I'm not going to tell you that you have to come to Lachine. You could actually find stuff in your local environment also. So I do see that there's questions already, but I'm going to just introduce the rest of the assignment, and then I'll ask some questions or answer some questions about what I'm discussing. So here's what you're going to be asked to do. So it's more of an autoethnography. So you're going to write about you and your experience, but you're also going to situate this into the larger conversation about sustainability, okay? So it's less of a blog and more of like a self-report about things that have taken place during the volunteering. And I would like to find out about what you've contributed, but also what you've learned from your experience. So you should think about what you're expecting from the experience, what you intend to do, and then what came out of this. So I put a guide here, and you don't have to follow specifically this guide. What I would highly recommend you do is actually take a look. The next slide is the grading rubric. So just kind of catering it to this grading rubric here. But this is a guide as to what you should be writing about. So you should have a clear and concise, specific summary of the community project. So what is the community project that you're volunteering with? What does this project do? You know, what is their goals and their mission of the project? So basically just a description of the food organization itself. A summary of your intended goals, and you know, what you wanted to do with this project, and a resume of what you've accomplished. So what did you set out to do? And then what did you do? So what are the tasks that you performed, and what were the deliverables about what you accomplished? You could situate this into more of a playful writing style and talk about it kind of in the life of this organization, and then you're part of this life for one day or for 3 hours, really. And you know, what is it to be part of this organization for the experience that you're partaking in? You're also going to write a statement about your performance in the project and what you expected or how you expected to perform. So you know, you maybe went to a community garden for the first time. You didn't know what to expect. Maybe you expected that you're going to be planting some things, but you realized actually what they need at the time is harvesting, or maybe they need soil enhancements, or maybe they need, you know, people to build certain aspects of the garden or other things. Maybe you didn't expect that, and maybe that was part of your learning, that gardening is actually not just about planting things and then picking them, but actually has a whole other area of components that actually go into making successful urban gardens. So a statement about what you learned by participating with this community group. This is more of an important factor. So what is your learning about? What did you take away from this experience? And hopefully you actually got something out of it. And then the other important part is to link a statement about the community food organization and what it does to address food issues. So how does it address food sustainability? How does it address maybe food security or food sovereignty or food justice or these other things? So this is what I'm asking you to do in your blog. You know, it doesn't take too much to volunteer 3 hours, and then basically write about your experience and then incorporate things that you learned in the course into your blog also. So is it possible to bring a friend that's not in the class to volunteer as well? Yes, definitely. You could bring a friend if you want to. You know, if you're volunteering out in the world, it doesn't have to, you know, there might be other people there also. So you could bring a friend if you want to. The other thing you could do is you could actually volunteer with people as part of this class. So if there's somebody that you know in the class or someone you've met through the breakout rooms, you could actually go with them. You could go by twos if you'd like to. So that's a possibility as well. Do you have to register for a specific time or just show up? Well, that's up to the organization themselves. So the first thing you're going to have to do is contact the organization and find out if you could actually just show up and, you know, participate, or if you actually need to schedule something with them. So a lot of the time, there's specific things that these groups need. The one thing that the groups don't like is if somebody comes to volunteer, they don't necessarily want to take on extra work all the time because a lot of the time they're quite busy in what they're up to. So you're going to need to communicate with the group and find out, first of all, if they actually have the capacity to take on a volunteer for the day and what that means actually in the bigger picture as to how you're going to participate. So do we need to bring masks? Well, right now in Quebec, the indoor context is you need to wear masks in indoor situations. In outdoor situations, it's not required by law. Now, I would say depending on your level of comfort and depending on what you're doing, in community gardens that I work in, if people are distanced, they don't wear masks because we're outdoors and we're actually quite far away from people. Although, you know, if the garden gets quite crowded, if like a lot of you want to show up at once, then social distancing might be more difficult. So in that case, you probably would be more comfortable either wearing a mask or not. That's up to you for outdoors. Indoors, you're going to have to, though, because that is actually a requirement by the Quebec law. And I'm not going to suggest that you violate that. So I would just highly suggest you follow the recommendations. You could also ask the organization, too, if you're working outdoors, about what they recommend. And, you know, I guess depending on what they tell you, if you're going to be social distancing or not, that's up to you to decide. So for volunteering in Lachine, would we just discuss it with you or contact them? Well, if you want to come to the community garden, I'm there on Thursdays. So I'm going to be there tomorrow, but I think that's probably very short notice. Then I'm going to be there next Thursday also. I usually go there at about 11 o'clock and usually stay till about 3 o'clock or so. So if people actually want to come, not this Thursday, but next Thursday, then you're definitely welcome to do so. And you can actually write about different things. If you've noticed, actually, the Facebook page that I've started about Little City Homestead, I published a couple things that we're growing in the garden that are considered weeds. So, you know, I've done blogs on them just to kind of orient people to understand that there are things that might be available to them at the markets that we have in the community, but they might not know what these things are. So I'm trying to introduce people to different foods. You know, the kind of your volunteer labor at that point could actually be doing some kind of a blog post about something specific in the garden. It could actually also be about, you know, how to prepare gardens or other things about your experience within the garden as well. So depending on what you're doing, you can cater your blog towards that. The one thing, or the two, well, actually more than one, the two things that I really need to see in your blog is a link to food and sustainability, as well as a statement about what you've learned performing with this group. But besides that, you can cater your blog to the projects that you're doing. If it's another group in Lachine that you want to volunteer with, some of them, or actually I have contacts with pretty much all of them. So I can actually introduce you to other groups. There's other gardens around, there's other food security projects and other things, but you could actually look at your own community if you don't want to trek all the way down here. That's up to you. If you live in a place that's not in Canada right now, you could actually look at within your own community. But if the conditions are not safe for you to leave the house, just let me know and we'll figure out something else to do. All right, so I have a grading rubric that I put up also. I'd say take a look at this and just make sure that you understand where your points are going to be allocated. So basically, I'm looking at the clarity of the report, your intentions and accomplishments, the grammar, sentence, and structure, which is, you know, not the heavily weighted thing, but just make sure you proofread your stuff. Food and sustainability assessment, which basically means that you need to rationalize this link between the organization and what they're doing in terms of sustainability. Resources, so you do need to incorporate things that you've learned in the course or external resources. So it could be stuff just from our readings, or it could be stuff that you've actually done other research on. Form and aesthetic, so considering it's a blog, it would be nice if you could actually make it look like a blog, but I'm not putting the majority of your weight on form and aesthetic. Also, considering I'm not, you know, asking you to publish this, you could if you want to. This is pretty much the lowest priority is the aesthetic elements of it, but you know, if you do want to take some time to put some photos and stuff, that would definitely be appreciated. So I don't know if you have questions or concerns. This is the next assignment that you're going to be partaking in, or the next blog assignment at least. So if you have questions or concerns, feel free to address them now. Okay, it doesn't seem so. So great, what I'm gonna do is we're going to do the next template. So I'm gonna have you participate with a partner, and you're gonna start to think about different groups or different projects that you wanna partake in. You might think right now that, you know, I'm just being presented this project here and I don't know what I'm gonna be doing. That's fine. So take a couple minutes to tease this out with somebody. You could talk about what you think you might wanna do, or maybe some of the groups that you've heard of. You know, start to formulate some kind of an understanding as to where you want to go with this. So before I break you off into groups, just to kind of reiterate, if you want to work on the community garden in Lachine, not tomorrow, but the Thursday after that would probably be the best day for you to come and volunteer. And just let me know, and I'll tell you where to come and tell you what time to show up and everything, and get you oriented for that. So I see a question here. If you'd like to come to the garden next Thursday, how do we go about it? Yes, confirm it with me. Just send me an email and say I'd like to come next Thursday. I just want to make sure that, you know, considering it's not a large garden, it's actually quite a small urban garden. I want to make sure that, you know, not 60 people are showing up at once, but we'll have you come in different shifts or whatever the case is. And it would be great to meet you all too. So if you want to come, that would be quite a pleasurable experience to actually get to know some people in the class. But if you'd rather do something else, it's fine too. So it's up to you to think about and to figure out what other projects you want to do. There's another group that I know of pretty well that I've actually worked with. So other options are, there's a group called Incredible Edibles, where actually they're Transitions NDG, technically, that runs this program. And they're looking for people to help them do more kind of like work with communications. So they would like to develop some community pamphlets and things like that. Most of these things could be done remotely. So I could get you in touch with the Transitions NDG group. But you know, there's other groups like Premier Moisson might need some volunteers to help with food distribution. There's a whole bunch of food banks that are available. NDG has the depot. You know, Pointe Saint Charles has Bats Marset with Le Détour. You could go to Saint-Tropez-Roulant, who probably need some people. There's a whole bunch of community groups that need people at the present moment. So, you know, if you want to think of other options, then that's fine. So Stephanie, that hopefully addresses your question, what other options are there? There are options all over the place here. Is there resilience in the Atwater area? So Atwater area, I'm not sure if I know what that means, but I would say if you're talking about Atwater, like St. Henry area, Pointe Saint Charles is very close, and Bats Marset is very close to there. Very, very close to where the Atwater Market is. I'd say probably like a 5-10 minute bike ride from there. So Bats Marset has Le Détour and has a bunch of other projects that maybe need some volunteers. Excuse me, sorry about that. So if you want to contact some groups, it's great. If you're really struggling and you can't find anything, just let me know and I'll help you out with that.